Imagine, if you will, a world sculpted by ice and wind. Not the world of today, but a canvas stretched taut across the northern hemisphere, vast and untamed. This was the late Pleistocene epoch, a time when colossal glaciers carved valleys and flattened mountains, leaving behind an expanse of treeless steppes and tundras shimmering under a pale, ancient sun. From the wind-swept plains of what is now Siberia, stretching across the Bering Land Bridge into the heart of North America, lay a unique ecosystem, a mammoth steppe, a cold, dry grassland that defied the barrenness often associated with ice. In this colossal, breathtaking landscape, one creature stood as a true monarch, the woolly mammoth. Not merely large, but a living mountain of muscle and bone, draped in a shaggy coat of thick, insulating hair. This remarkable pelt, sometimes reaching nearly a meter in length, was a shield against the biting winds and relentless cold, a testament to millions of years of adaptation. Beneath that fur lay a layer of fat, up to 10 centimeters thick, providing further warmth and energy reserves during the leanest seasons. Their ears, surprisingly small compared to their modern elephant cousins, minimized heat loss, while their massive curving tusks, sometimes astonishing 15 feet long, were not just weapons for defense. They were essential tools, used with surprising dexterity to scrape away snow, revealing buried grasses, sedges, and flowering plants, or to dig for roots and tubers hidden beneath the permafrost. Picture a herd, a moving tapestry of life across these vast, open plains. Led by an elder matriarch, wise with countless seasons of survival, these magnificent beasts traversed immense distances, following ancient migratory paths dictated by the rhythm of the seasons and the availability of sustenance. Calves, born after a long gestation, were vulnerable but fiercely protected within the herd's formidable ranks, learning the ways of the world from their mothers, aunts, and sisters. Their lives were a constant rhythmic dance of foraging, resting, and moving, a demanding cycle of survival in a harsh yet abundant world. They communicated through a complex language of deep, rumbling calls, infrasonic vibrations that carried across the vastness, binding the herd together, alerting them to danger, or calling out to lost youngsters. Their social bonds were as strong as their physical forms, a resilient tapestry woven from shared experience and mutual protection. The mammoths were not just inhabitants, they were the very architects of their world. Their constant grazing maintained the vast mammoth steppe, preventing forests from encroaching, creating and sustaining a rich grassland mosaic that supported a staggering array of life. Woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer, herds of bison, and countless smaller creatures thrived in the wake of the mammoth's passage. Their massive bodies, moving across the landscape, churned the soil, aiding in seed dispersal and nutrient cycling. They were the great gardeners of the Ice Age, their very existence shaping the biodiversity around them, enriching the soil with their dung and opening up pathways for other species. A world without mammoths would have been a profoundly different place, a silent testament to their ecological power, a landscape slowly consumed by an encroaching, less diverse vegetation. There's a profound sense of awe that comes with imagining these creatures, not just their colossal size, but their sheer endurance, their quiet majesty. They were survivors, perfectly adapted to a world that would crush lesser beings. Their eyes, though small in their massive heads, held a quiet intelligence, a millennia of instinct and experience etched within them. To stand before a living mammoth, to feel the ground tremble with their passing, would have been to witness a true wonder of the natural world, a symbol of resilience, power, and ancient wisdom, a living echo of a time long past. Yet, even in this seemingly unyielding world, subtle shifts were beginning. The ice, which had defined their existence for so long, was not eternal. A slight, almost imperceptible warmth was beginning to creep into the air, a whisper of change carried on the wind, a gentle softening of the permafrost. The vast, dry grasslands they depended on were slowly, inexorably becoming wetter, giving way to boggy terrain and denser, less nutritious forests. These new environments were less suited to their massive frames and specialized grazing habits. Their thick coats, once their greatest asset, might one day become a burden, trapping heat rather than keeping it out. Their slow reproductive rates, perfectly adequate for a stable environment, left little room for error in a world undergoing rapid transformation. Perhaps an ancient matriarch, wise with the knowledge of countless seasons, would lift her head, sniffing the air with a newfound unease. A scent alien to the familiar tang of ice and tundra, a faint whiff of smoke carried from distant horizons. Or perhaps it was the way the seasons began to blur, the winters a little less harsh, the summers a little more humid, subtly altering the delicate balance of the grasses they relied upon. The world, for so long a constant, was beginning to hum with a new, unsettling frequency, a deep, resonant hum that spoke of change. And then a new presence emerged. Small, upright figures, moving with a purpose unlike any other predator. They were not merely seeking survival, they sought mastery. Their tools, though crude, were extensions of an intellect unlike any the mammoths had ever encountered. A shadow, not of a saber-toothed cat or a cave lion, but of something far more complex, began to stretch across the vast plains. The mammoths, for all their strength and majesty, were about to face a challenge for which millennia of evolution had not prepared them. The first arrow, the first spear, tipped with flint and fired with intent, was more than just a hunting tool. It was a harbinger. It was the moment when the balance of power, held for so long by nature's giants, began to shift. Imagine the matriarch leading her herd across a familiar frozen river, sensing a tremor not from the earth, but from the future. A future where the vastness of their world would shrink, where the very ground beneath their feet would change, and where a new kind of hunter would rise, armed not with claws, but with cunning. How could a creature so perfectly adapted, so powerful, so integral to its world, ever truly vanish? What forces, both natural and unnatural, could conspire to silence the thunder of their passing? The answer lies in the delicate dance between climate, environment, and the relentless march of a species that would come to dominate the planet. The world was changing, irrevocably. The gentle whisper of warmth that had begun to stir in the previous age soon became a roaring wind of transformation. Around 15,000 years ago, the great glaciers that had shaped continents began their final dramatic retreat. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but a long, drawn-out process, a geological sigh that echoed across millennia. As the ice sheets melted, sea levels rose, submerging the crucial Bering land bridge, effectively severing the migratory pathways between Asia and North America. What was once a continuous, sprawling mammoth steppe began to fragment, breaking into isolated pockets, each one shrinking under the relentless pressure of a warming climate. This wasn't just about temperature. The melting ice released colossal amounts of water, transforming the dry, nutrient-rich grasslands into a mosaic of boggy wetlands, dense forests, and unproductive shrublands. The very ecosystem that had sustained the woolly mammoths for millions of years was slowly unraveling. Their specialized teeth, perfectly adapted for grinding tough, fibrous grasses, struggled with the tougher bark and leaves of the encroaching trees. Their massive bodies, so efficient at dissipating heat in the cold, open tundra, began to overheat in the warmer, more humid forests. The vast spaces they needed for foraging and migration were shrinking, hemmed in by new vegetation and rising waters. We can look back and see the echoes of this struggle in the fossil record. A tooth, found in what is now a temperate forest, tells a story of an animal desperately trying to adapt its diet. A skeleton, preserved in ancient peat, speaks of a mammoth that likely became trapped in a bog, unable to free itself from the unfamiliar, treacherous terrain. These were not isolated incidents, but symptoms of a species slowly losing its grip on a world that was no longer its own. The pressure mounted not with a single blow, but with 1,000 tiny changes, each one eroding their chances of survival. But nature was not the only force at play. As the mammoth's world contracted, another species was expanding its reach, its numbers growing with an unprecedented speed: Homo sapiens, humans. For thousands of years, our ancestors had coexisted with mammoths, hunting them, yes, but often sustainably, taking what they needed, living within the limits of the land. We see their magnificent cave paintings, depicting mammoths with reverence and awe, a testament to the profound connection between these two species. But as the climate continued to shift, the dynamic changed. Imagine a small band of human hunters, perhaps 12,000 years ago, huddled on a ridge overlooking a valley. Below them, a small herd of mammoths, perhaps a dozen or so, grazes nervously. The hunters are no longer just seeking a single kill for sustenance. The stakes are higher. Their own numbers are growing, and the resources are becoming scarcer. Their tools have evolved: sharper spear points, more efficient throwing devices. Their strategies, honed over generations, are sophisticated, involving coordinated efforts, knowledge of the terrain, and an understanding of the mammoth's behavior. They might drive a herd into a natural trap, a deep ravine, or a river crossing, where the mammoths, already stressed by environmental changes, would be vulnerable. This wasn't wanton slaughter, but a desperate and effective response to changing circumstances. A single mammoth provided an immense bounty: meat for months, hides for shelter and clothing, bones and ivory for tools, weapons, and art. Every part was utilized, a testament to the respect and resourcefulness of these ancient hunters. But the cumulative effect of this hunting, combined with the shrinking habitat and changing climate, was devastating. It was a perfect storm, a pincer movement of environmental degradation and human pressure. Consider the timelines. The last major ice age ended about 10,000 years ago, but the mammoths didn't disappear overnight. Their extinction was a process, a series of retreats and last stands. Some populations, like those in mainland Eurasia and North America, vanished relatively quickly, overwhelmed by the combined pressures. Yet, isolated pockets clung on. For thousands of years after their mainland counterparts had disappeared, small populations of mammoths survived on remote islands, pockets of a forgotten world. One such refuge was Wrangel Island, a desolate, wind-swept landmass in the Arctic Ocean off the coast of Siberia. Here, a relic population of woolly mammoths persisted, an anachronism in a world that had moved on. They were smaller than their mainland ancestors, a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism, adapting to the limited resources of their island home. Their numbers were few, perhaps only a few hundred, a fragile echo of their former glory. For nearly 6,000 years, they defied the odds, survivors against the relentless march of time and climate change. But even Wrangel Island was not immune to the creeping influence of the outside world. Around 4,000 years ago, a new arrival reached its shores. Not ice, not a new predator, but humans. The very species that had played a significant role in the mainland extinctions, now, after millennia, discovered this final refuge. We don't know the exact story of their final days on Wrangel. Was it a dramatic hunt, a swift end, or was it a slower decline? A gradual erosion of their numbers, as the island's delicate ecosystem, already strained, struggled to support both man and mammoth. The archaeological record offers tantalizing clues. Mammoth bones found alongside human tools on Wrangel Island, dating to precisely the time of their disappearance. It suggests a final tragic encounter. A species that had weathered countless ice ages, faced down saber-toothed cats and cave bears, and adapted to some of the harshest environments on Earth, ultimately succumbed not just to a changing planet, but to the ingenuity and impact of a single species. It was a testament to human adaptability, yes, but also a stark early warning of our capacity to alter the very fabric of life on Earth. The question that lingers is not just how they vanished, but what lessons we might have learned, or tragically failed to learn, from their slow, painful retreat. What decisions, made thousands of years ago, set us on this path, and what choices do we face today, standing on the precipice of similar, irreversible losses? The year is approximately 1700 BC. On Wrangel Island, the last woolly mammoth draws its final breath. Not with a roar or a dramatic fall, but perhaps quietly, alone, under a vast, indifferent sky. And then silence. A silence that spread across the Arctic tundra, across the vast plains of Europe and Asia, across the ancient landscapes of North America. The thunderous rumble of their migrations, the deep, resonant calls that once echoed for miles, the very sound of their colossal bodies moving through the landscape, all gone. The world, for the first time in millions of years, was without mammoths. Imagine returning to those sweeping vistas we pictured at the beginning, the vast mammoth steppe. Now, it's different. The grasses that once stretched to the horizon, kept short and rich by the mammoth's constant grazing, have been replaced. In many areas, dense forests now stand, or boggy wetlands have taken hold, choked with moss and sedges. The open, biodiverse landscape, once a vibrant tapestry, has become less varied, less resilient. The loss of the mammoths wasn't just the loss of a single magnificent species. It was the collapse of an entire ecological architecture. Their absence created a void that no other animal could truly fill. The large grazers that remained, like bison or reindeer, couldn't replicate the mammoth's unique role in shaping the environment. Without their massive bodies churning the soil, dispersing seeds, and preventing the encroachment of woody plants, the nutrient cycles changed. The permafrost, once protected by the insulating layer of grass and snow, began to thaw more deeply in the warming climate, releasing ancient carbon and further accelerating environmental shifts. The very ground, once alive with the constant activity of these giants, now lay still, a landscape subtly diminished. Today, we walk these lands and we might see remnants, a colossal tusk emerging from the permafrost, perfectly preserved, a ghostly white curve against the dark soil. A frozen carcass, sometimes with flesh and hair still intact, offering a chilling glimpse into a world long gone. These finds are more than just scientific curiosities. They are poignant reminders of what was lost. They allow us to peer into the past, to understand their biology, their diet, even the pathogens they carried, painting an ever more detailed picture of their lives and their world. The story of the woolly mammoth is a profound lesson, etched in ice and bone. It teaches us about the interconnectedness of life, how the removal of a keystone species can ripple through an entire ecosystem. It highlights the immense power of climate change, not as a sudden event, but as a relentless, incremental force that can reshape continents and drive even the most resilient creatures to the brink. And it forces us to confront the early, undeniable impact of our own species, our ingenuity, our adaptability, and our capacity to alter the natural world, sometimes with unforeseen and irreversible consequences. This isn't just a tale of ancient extinctions, it's a mirror reflecting our present. Today, many of the mammoth's closest living relatives, the elephants, face similar threats. Their habitats are shrinking, fragmented by human development. They are hunted not for survival, but for their ivory, a cruel echo of the very tusks that once helped mammoths survive the Ice Age. The African and Asian elephants, vital architects of their own ecosystems, stand on the precipice, their future uncertain. Will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we learn from the silence of the mammoth? The scientific community, fascinated by the mammoth's enduring mystique, even explores the possibility of de-extinction. Using advanced genetic technologies, scientists are working to bring back, or at least create a hybrid version of, the woolly mammoth. The idea is not merely to resurrect a lost icon, but to potentially reintroduce a mammoth-like creature to the Arctic tundra, hoping it might help restore the ancient grasslands and combat permafrost thaw, addressing some of the very ecological shifts that contributed to their demise. It's an ambitious, ethically complex endeavor, raising profound questions about our role in shaping life on Earth and whether we can truly mend what we have broken. But perhaps the most important legacy of the woolly mammoth isn't about bringing them back, but about understanding why they left. Their story is a powerful call to action, a reminder that every species, no matter how grand or seemingly insignificant, plays a vital role. The choices we make today about our climate, about our land use, about our consumption, are not just about us. They are about the countless species that share this planet, many of which are facing the same pressures that ultimately silence the mammoths. As we stand on the edge of a new geological epoch, one defined by human impact, the ghost of the woolly mammoth looms large. Its story echoes through the vast, empty landscapes it once roamed, a silent testament to a world lost. Can we hear that echo? Can we understand its warning? The thunder of the mammoth's passing may have faded into history, but the lessons they offer are more urgent than ever. The question is no longer what happened to them, but what will we do for the species that remain, for the ecosystems that still breathe, and for the future of the only planet we call home. The silence of the mammoth is a profound question, waiting for our answer.